Hello everybody, we're joined today by Bangrim, the creator behind the webcomic adaptation of the iconic Wattpad series Play the Game. We had a great time unpacking her story, learning about her gorgeous art style and what influenced it. We unearthed the backstory behind adapting an existing written hit series and getting the original creator excited about the adaptation, and learn about how she manages to juggle her busy life as a civil engineering fourth year student with her comic work, among so many other things. Here's Pang.
Bong, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Do you want to give everyone a little bit of an introduction of who you are?
Hello, my name is Bang, and I'm the illustrator of Play the Game on Webtoon. I'm from Philippines, and I'm also a civil engineering student. And making comics is just a hobby of mine, and I still have a lot to learn, so I'm still exploring things. My MBTI is INTP, and I'm not really
Hmm.
proficient in speaking English, so please bear with me if I stutter a bit.
Your English is really, really good. I don't speak any Tagalog, so you're doing me a massive favor by speaking such great English. So thank you so much. And we obviously love meeting people from all around the world on the pod. I'd love to just start a little bit with, what you're kind of into. It seems like you're really, really into K-pop. I'm a K-pop fan as well.
Yes.
Our producer Jacob's a K-pop fan. How did you get into
Oh.
K-pop? And I'm curious, what are some of your favorite groups?
I'm hyped up today because Blackpink just released their new album after 2 years. Yes,
Yeah.
and I'm a fan of Blackpink, but I've been a fan of K-pop since like 2012, and I'm a huge fan of Big Bang and 21. They're the first
Mm,
group that really got me into K-pop until today. The impact of K-pop to my life is that it got me into dancing and also helped
mm.
me with my confidence and improve my creativity, something like that.
So you're a civil engineering student, you can dance, and you make a web comic.
Ah,
I think we can make like five podcasts, but
yes.
let's focus on the comic part. So how did you get into making
Okay.
comics?
Um, comic. I've been drawing like as a kid. Like I already like art since I was young, and what got me really into webtoon is when I started watching the K drama Cheese in the Trap, and I learned that it was an adaptation from Webtoons. So I was curious and started reading it. And then I got interested in other series in the app also. So I started reading them. And it
Mm,
fascinates me because it's like reading a book, but you don't need to imagine the scenes because you can actually see them. And by that,
mm.
then I have this thought of creating my own comic too, since I can also draw and I like stories.
So our producer Jacob noticed that Pangrim, and apologies to my Korean listeners if I messed that up, means room drawing
Oh,
in
yes.
Korean. Is that how you chose your pen name?
Bang is actually doesn't literally translate to room in my nickname. It's just a nickname of mine because maybe I've been
Mm.
dancing to Bang 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 by Big Bang for a very long time. So so my friends just came up with that nickname for me. And yes, Grim translates to drawing. So when you combine it, it's like bang drawing. But yeah, I got to
uh,
play with words like from another language. So I use Grim. It's a Korean word, but I spelled it to an English word. So it sounds
mm.
nice.
And you mentioned you're a self-taught artist. You've learned all of this on your own. What would you draw as you kind of grew up?
I also explored different art media while growing up. I've
Mm,
tried mural painting, canvas painting, scribble art, colored pencil portraits, poster making, editorial cartooning, and now digital art. So I just love art and drawing in general. So it's a
mm,
hobby of mine for a very long time. I don't go to an art school or like have a proper art education. I
mm.
just watch other artists and learn from them. So maybe that's how I get to improve my skills over time.
One thing I really admire about your art is it's Korean or sort of Eastern art inspired, but you definitely have your own spin on it. So how do you think you came up with your style of what your art looks like? What do you think were the big influences on
Yeah, actually, I've heard a lot that my art style kind of reminds them of True Beauty. maybe it
Yeah.
did have an influence. Yes, maybe it did have an influence because True Beauty is another comic that I like in terms of art style, but I still don't think I have my own art style yet. I'm still exploring things and learning
Mm,
from other artists. And also that's the reason why the art style you can see right now in Play the Game is kind of evolving because I'm trying to apply what I have learned through the process and I'm trying to improve myself. But if I would say a specific artist that has the biggest influence on my art style, that would be Kenny Comics, like the creator of Killmox. The
mm.
lighting and the anatomy is just so awesome and attractive. So yeah, maybe it has an influence to my art style.
We're going to talk about attractive characters in 1 second, but before we get to that, Play the Game is an adaptation of a very popular Wattpad series. So, can you tell us a little bit about the story behind how you got introduced to the story and decided to work on an adaptation?
Play the Game is a story I personally like, and as a reader myself, I do want to turn my imaginations into reality and having a thought of how awesome would that be to actually see the scenes that I have been imagining while reading the book.
Mm,
And the story is in Filipino language, but I want to share it to the world. So I
yeah.
contacted the author, Biach. She's the author of the book. I asked her if she's interested on having a webtoon adaptation of her story, and I'm glad that she said yes. I'm really thankful that she trusted me when I'm just an artist that appears out of nowhere.
That's such a cool story. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the original Wattpad story has a lot of
Yes.
Tagalog in it, right? I think a lot of the dialogue is in Tagalog. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. It's a mixed English.
Some English, some Tagalog. Was that a challenge for you, kind of translating from Tagalog to English?
Yeah, it's kind of challenging because I myself not really proficient in English, but I can manage because my sister is also helping me translating some things.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And as you were working on this adaptation, so you mentioned you reached out to Biatch and they were like, you know what, go for this. What were the next steps then? How did you go
Yes,
from,
yes.
okay, I love this story on Wattpad. I want to share it to the world. I want to show people how I've thought of it. What was the process like from that to actually adapting it into a webtoon?
When Biatch approved my offer to have it an adaptation, I started to storyboard the story in panels and sketch like translates the things, but I cut some scenes on the prologue because it would be too long.
Mm,
Yeah, it still would fine to read because the main idea is still there.
mm,
And I also contacted Biatch through email regarding the character designs.
mm.
Like we talk about some references to finally came up with a current look of each character.
So can you walk us through that character design process a little bit more? Because you have many good looking characters in there. So how did you kind of,
Yeah,
come up with your own feel of what these characters look like and also make, the original creator Biatch feel good about the characters? What was that process like?
because in the book there are really detailed descriptions about the character. Like for example, Jax, he should look a bit cold, like
Mm,
something like that, but he should look smart and have eyeglasses. So the characters in the book has a lot of descriptions. So it wasn't that hard for me to make visuals for
mm,
them, and I also asked Biatch to if she any have references like artists that she associates with that character or
mm.
something. So yeah, so we talk about it until we came up with a current look of each character.
When you started this, was there like a character or two that you had a really strong idea for immediately? You're like, oh, I know what, Kitty should look like, or I know what Jax should look like. Were there people that you already knew?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who were they?
Uh, like most of the characters, I actually have celebrity references, but for Jax, I just came up immediately. I don't know. I just maybe I like Jax. Maybe I'm biased to Jax, but yeah, I just came up like I just draw and oh, this is the Jax that what I have in my mind while reading the book. And then Kitty is Pony, like the makeup artist,
Mm,
and Cha is a mixture of Soyeji and Sojie.
mm,
and also Inigo is a mixture of Rowan, but I made him a little bit Filipino.
um, what was it like just, adapting a Filipino story? Was there anything in particular you wanted to convey about Filipino culture as you were telling the story that we may not see in other webtoons?
Oh yes, for example, the money.
Mm,
I really use the Philippine money on my
mm,
series, and like the norms. Like example, in my country, you call someone older, like older brother, you call them kuya.
mm.
So I just take I did not translate it to brother in the comic. I really used the word kuya and then just put just some small explanation under. So I really use some Filipino words that don't have direct English translations in the comic itself, and I just put some descriptions or explanations in the panel.
Did you want to make any changes to the story, or did you need to in order for it to fit to a webtoon format? Or um, were you kind of like the story is really good as it is? I just want to bring it to life.
Hmm. No, I've been wanting it to be what it is in the book.
Mm.
But because the sole purpose of this adaptation is just to retell the story from the original book to a wider audience. So all I have to do is to translate it in English and give visuals. But I kind of experimenting some panels to make it look good in a vertical scrolling comic. So maybe that's how I change some scenes.
And as I read this, there are so many law terms that I'm starting to read. And I will say I appreciate the little asterisks that you put in there to let me know what that crim means, criminology and stuff like that. It helps me a lot,
Yeah.
but I'm learning a lot as I read it too. I'm curious, did you have to do a lot of research to just understand things about law school? Because I don't know the first thing about law school and becoming a lawyer. And so, was that a challenge for you as you made the story?
Oh, yeah, it was difficult for me because I'm a civil engineering student, which is very far from law. I do math, and yeah, I'm not really good in law terms, but yeah, I did a lot of research because I also watch law dramas,
Oh,
K dramas,
awesome.
so I kind of learn from it. Yes, and yeah, while actually adapting the series, I got to learn also.
What have you learned about making webcomics since you started making the series?
I learned how to balance the art quality that won't take much of your time in every panels because it might take you 30 minutes or more to make each scene, but readers will just look at it like 5 seconds.
Mm,
So I kind of reduce some details and like compared to the artworks that I am uploading on my Patreon and Instagram, I learned to like reduce some details in the webtoon and also learn adding some lightings and some cool stuff.
So, you mentioned earlier you're a student, so you're juggling a lot of different things. How do you sort of plan your
Oh
schedule? And
yes.
yeah, how does your schedule look, in order for you to get a comic out? How long do things take for you usually?
I used to actually put a lot of buffer episode when I started the comic. Like I have 5 buffer episodes before I launch the comic. But I actually used to update every week like
Mm,
an originals creator. But I'm not doing it now because I was really busy since I'm in my fourth year now
mm.
in engineering school. So I was kind of busy. So maybe after I finish all my schoolwork, so I work at night on my webtoon, and yeah, during my break time I work on my webtoon.
Wow, in between breaks. So, how often do you try and release episodes now? Or are you less worried about a schedule and do you just try and update whenever you can?
Yeah, I don't follow schedules lately. I just upload whenever I finish an episode because I don't have buffer episodes anymore.
Mm,
And I just finished the last episode of the season 1. So I'm working on the season 2 now. So maybe it would take me like a lot of time to release it. So because I need to have a buffer episode.
And is there like a secret or something about the webtoon that people might not know about that you want to share?
in story, I don't think I have a secret to tell because readers already know
Yeah.
the story. But in the webtoon adaptation, I actually had a cameo on Play the Game.
Ah.
Not just me, but my friends too. I use the people I know as reference for the characters who just have one time appearance.
Ah.
So you can find me on episode 22 actually.
After episode 22. All right, well, we're gonna dig that up and now we'll know that's you. That's super exciting. You know, you mentioned you wanted to stay true to Filipino culture. And one of the things I liked about your webtoon is I would read it and I think there's one chapter where people are like, can people please post comments in English? And I look and there's a bunch of comments in Tagalog and it makes me happy because it shows you
Yeah.
the kind of community that you get to build. And there's, someone creating stories for a Filipino audience. And, they can be in the Philippines, they can be around the world. Can you just talk a little bit about the reaction that this webtoon has gotten? Is this something you expected?
Yes, especially when I first launched the prologue, I've seen people from the Wattpad recalling the scenes that they have read, and I also see some new readers appreciating the story, which is my goal.
Mm,
And I was overwhelmed with the amount of support and kind of have a lot of pressure to satisfy the hype until the end. I don't have a fan base yet, because as I've said, I'm just an artist that pops out of nowhere. But yeah, I interact with them on my socials, and I'm glad that they like my adaptation.
you mentioned you don't have a big audience. You have 84,000 people
Yeah.
who follow you, which is incredible. I mean, how does that feel?
I kinda expected numbers, but I did not expect to be that big because I thought people would just check it out at first because they won't read it until the end because they already know the
Mm,
story. Maybe some did, but there is a lot who still anticipates every update, even if they already know what will happen. So I'm grateful for that, and yeah, maybe because there's a lot of readers, new readers who are also curious about the stories.
I see. Did Biatch have any goals as well of what they wanted from the webtoon? Or were they like, oh, you can kind of make this your thing? How do they feel about it now?
Oh, actually, like they also wanted it to have a wider audience,
Mhm.
so she agreed to have an adaptation. But overall, it's up to me how to build the webtoon. I like I'm in charge in the webtoon field, and she's doing her thing on Wattpad. So yeah, it's all on me on webtoon.
And as you've made this adaptation, in the future, do you want to do more adaptations? Do you want to start to tell your own stories? How are you starting to think about that?
I'm planning actually on finishing Fear, like the first comic that I have.
Mm,
Maybe I will republish it, but I do want to have another adaptation from Wattpad if I have the time in the
mm,
future. And also, I also want to make a comic that the story that I wrote.
mm. I have some questions about that, but I noticed as I was reading your webtoon is you always include fan art and you tell people like, please send me fan art on my socials.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about why that's so important to you?
I think it's because it's fun to see fan arts from fans. I think I did not plan it at first, but I received a DM on Twitter or something. Someone tagged me on Twitter that they have fan art for play games. So yeah, that's how it came to me. What if I will encourage other people reading the webtoon who are also good artists so that I can also share their talent to the readers.
Yeah, and speaking of sharing talent, you've also done a few collaborations with other Filipino artists. I think the Halloween one, a summer
Yes,
one.
yes.
Can you tell us a little more about like the Filipino webcomic community? Yeah, I'd love to just hear a little bit more about how you met them and what it's like to be a part of this community.
Actually, comic is already a thing in the Philippines, like way back before.
Hmm.
We already have like famous comics that have a TV series that I'm watching while growing up. So it's not a unfamiliar thing to me. Comics is already a thing, but webtoon is a new way of reading comics, right? Like the scrolling. So So it's very new in the Philippines, and I've seen also creators like in the originals who are Filipino creators, like the creator of Age Matters
Mm.
and Match Made in Hell. They are Filipinos, so I was amazed because even if you're not from Korea or from the US, which is the base of Webtoon, you can actually publish Webtoon on Canvas, which is free to everyone. So I met the Canvas creators friends. I don't know. I'm reading a Canvas story, and found out that she's a creator in the Philippines. So
Mm.
I started chatting her on Instagram, and yeah, we just kind of decided to have a collab on Halloween, and she gathered also her friends that are also Filipinos,
Hmm.
and yeah, that's how we came up with a Halloween collaboration.
And I guess what do you think? What do you want to see in the future from the Filipino webcomic community?
In my country, they don't really treat being a comic creator as a real job until you become overly successful.
Uh,
And I wanted to end that stigma because it is a job similar to any other kind of artist. Though it wouldn't guarantee success if you just started doing it, but I just wanted to relive the culture of comics in the Philippines that are slowly dying down. And there are a lot of talented webtoon creators here in the Philippines. So I wanted people to know more about Webtoon and come to appreciate it as much as how they like reading on Wattpad. And I'm really glad that I adapted Play the Game, which is a famous Wattpad story, because people from Wattpad actually downloaded the Webtoon app. And in my Instagram, I also give them like some Webtoon recommendations to read while waiting for the update of Play the Game. So I'm glad that I was able to invite them in the Webtoon world.
um, so I noticed you're very active on social media. It seems like Instagram
Yes.
and Twitter are like the big ones for artists. Are there things that you
Yeah.
do that you find, you know, really helps you build an audience on either of these?
Mm, I don't really know how to market my comic except in social media. So, yeah, I upload some artworks on my Instagram and Twitter, and then interact to the DMs. I answer DMs from fans, and also in Twitter, I retweet their reactions in every episode of Play the Game.
And you launched a Patreon as well. Can you tell everyone a little bit about what has worked well for you on your Patreon?
Patreon is just where I upload because there's an NSFW scene in Play the Game, so
Mm.
I uploaded the uncensored part there, and also like advanced episode they can read ahead Play the Game on my Patreon, and I also post some exclusive artworks that I don't share in any of my socials, just only for Patreons.
And what do you think your fans enjoy the most on Patreon?
I think the NSFW.
I see.
Yeah.
Is that something that you think is captured just better on a webtoon that like maybe is just something unique that you can get on webtoon that you can't get on the Wattpad? Or how did you approach that stuff for your readers?
I think Webtoon has a rule like very strict in terms of nudity or something like that, so
Mm.
I can't really upload some explicit scenes in there.
Hmm.
So that's why I have Patreon as a platform for me to also help a bit financially to me as an artist. And I think Patreon is a good way to upload those scenes
Mm.
aside from Webtoon, because you will get flagged on Webtoon if you upload such explicit scenes.
Mm. You know, you talked earlier about, you know, you want to do your own stories. Do you mind sharing some of the ideas or types of things that you might want to explore as you move on to another project at some point?
I want to try thriller stories
Mm.
or mystery, something more darker than Play the Game. actually play the game isn't not really on the dark side yet because the first episodes, like the season one of the play the game, it's more on a romance
Mm-hmm.
side, and then you just have to like it's just a mixture of romance and mystery. So in the second season, you can actually tell the change in genre of play the game because there will be heavier scenes. So while creating that, I just realized that um I really want to make a thriller story because I've been fan of Carnegie Kim's stories like The Sweet Home,
Uh,
Shotgun Boy. So I really like thrillers, so I wanna try that in the future.
is there anything that you think you need to learn before you try to make a thriller story, or do you think the best thing to do is just to start moving on that?
I think I need to learn more on anatomy
Mm-hmm.
because like the amazing perspective or action panels, yeah, I still need to learn more about that before I'm going to publish a thriller story because that would be awesome if I can master all of that.
What about on the writing side? Is that something that intimidates you? Focus on writing and drawing?
I have a story before play the game, which is Fear. It is a story I wrote myself, and I've been writing actually stories on Wattpad, but I'm not planning to share it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I like creating stories too. Like I write on my own, like just it's just for me. I don't share it to anyone. So writing is also part of my hobby, and maybe that's why being a comic creator is the perfect hobby for me because you can do both writing and drawing. Yeah, so but I'm not really good in writing because my vocabulary is not that wide, and I don't know how to tell a story in words. I prefer to tell a story in drawing. So maybe I need to like improve first my skills in drawing, and then yeah. So Fear is like mm, a practice webtoon for
Hmm.
me. It's the first webtoon that I've made, and and it's kind of lacking because I have not yet really learned a lot about webtoon while creating Fear. So it's like experimental
Hmm.
webtoon, and I did not really market it. I only tell that webtoon to my friends, and people is just there to discover it. So I don't really market Fear,
Hmm.
but yeah, I'm glad that people appreciates the story also, and even if there are few people waiting for the comeback of Fear, so I'm still thankful that they're still waiting for it.
So you mentioned you're a fourth year student. You have more stories you want to tell in the
Oh yeah.
future. You have a season two that's kicking off.
Mm.
What can we expect for your future? How are you thinking about the next year?
Mm, I don't usually plan a lot for my future because we wouldn't know what will happen.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm focusing in finishing my degree and get a license, then work a bit as an engineer. Maybe creating comics will remain as a hobby for now, but if opportunity knocks on my door, I would gladly grab it. And I would just wish that I will be doing a job that I would enjoy in the future.
And finally, what advice would you have for a creator that's just getting started?
My advice is to just go for it. Like Webtoon Canvas is a platform where everyone has a chance to publish a comic. So if it is something you enjoy doing, then share it to everyone. Nobody's great from the start, and there would be a lot of room for you to improve. So taking the first step is one thing. By making your comic out in the public, you would be prepared for possible criticisms, but you can also learn from them. So don't take criticism as a negative thing. Instead, try to prove yourself to them and improve yourself.
I love it. I love to go for it. And I'm really, really glad you went for it and decided to message and a writer that you like so you can adapt their work because I love reading through drawings and reading through more than reading through words. And I don't think I would have played the game without your adaptation. So I really enjoyed it. Are you ready to close things out with our rapid fire question?
Yes.
And I'm gonna add a mystery question at the end, just for fun. You'll ace it, don't worry. The first question: what fictional character best describes your personality?
I would choose Dam from My Roommate is a Gumio.
Hmm.
I think she's the most realistic character that I've seen so far on Webtoon. We are both university students too, and we're kind of similar in a way how we handle the college life, like balancing studies and having fun. It's just I don't have a handsome Gumiho roommate, so we're different in that case.
Number two: which web comics or comics would you take with you on a desert island?
Probably That Rescheduled, Flawed Almighty, and Lost in Translation because I have a lot of episodes to catch up in this series, so we'll definitely take this on a desert island to read.
I love Lawson Translation, and Jolie was an amazing guest. So if anybody has not read that,
Absolutely.
please go check it out. She's amazing. What's your favorite scene that pops up from any comic?
It's a scene from Shotgun Boy where Juwan, the male lead, meets Yunso from Sweet Home. It was satisfying to see them together in one panel. You kind of connected some dots because Shotgun Boy is the prequel of Sweet Home, and I'm happy to see the two male leads actually meet in one panel.
Fourth question: if you could have dinner with any creator that you do not know, who would it be?
I would choose Dejun Park, the creator of Lookism,
Mm.
Viral Hit, and My Life as a Loser, because I've been watching his YouTube vlogs lately, and I think he's a fun person to be with.
And then finally, if you could have dinner with a fictional character, who would it be?
Mm, Doguk from Perfect Marriage Revenge, because he's a good cook and an outgoing character. So maybe he's a fun to have dinner with. And yeah, being handsome is also a bonus.
And then my mystery question: what's your favorite song from the new Blackpink album?
Blackpink album. Oh my gosh. It's hard to choose actually because all of their song is just so awesome. But I would choose The Happiest Girl because oh my gosh, Jesus part really kicks in my heart.
That's a good one. I like that one as well. Bong, thank you so much for taking some time to join us. Listener, please check out Play the Game on Wattpad or on Webtoon. If you're listening to this, you probably do want the Webtoon option, but the Wattpad one is available as well. And from there, you can follow Bong on all sorts of socials. You can see her link tree on the creator profile. But Bong, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. If you have any feedback or want to be featured as our next guest, please write to us at pixelsandpanelspod@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, like, or give us a 5-star rating. See you all next week.